Hello, I'm Dr. Drew Rubin. Welcome to another episode of Disruptive Pediatrics, brought to you by ChiroSecure, the malpractice insurance company that I have used since I graduated way back from Life College, Life University now in 1989. Today, I want to talk to you about something that has really been on my mind quite a bit lately, and that is the developmental milestones. I don't know how many of you know that it's been changed since February of 2022 when the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics got together and decided suddenly to pronounce that all of a sudden all of our milestones are changed and altered. And I want to share that with you because I think it has profound impacts, not just on our profession, but on any profession that deals with kids. So let's go to the slides. And my first slide talks about why this is so important. So autism has seen an 800% increase, 800, not 80 and not 800% increase in diagnosis from the year 2000. And a matter of fact, I was just listening to a seminar with AFNR with Dr. Malillo, and he said in the last 3 years, there has been a 53% increase in the autism diagnosis. So this is really ramping up at an unbelievable pace. 1 in 5 children in our country now have a mental health disorder. That's up from 1 in 6 the last time I was talking about this several years ago. It is now 1 in 5. 1 in 6 children have developmental disabilities, also up from 1 in 10. We're just seeing this huge onslaught, this huge prevalence increase in autism, mental health disorders, developmental disabilities in children. What do we have to do about this? We have everything to do about this because to me, we are the ones who see these kids on a regular basis. It's not just seeing them like a typical pediatrician sees them once in a while, once every 6 months, whenever the kid is 6. We're seeing them several times a week. We're seeing that so we can really pick up on these kind of things. And this is something that I think we really need to learn more about. And why is this important? Because if you miss certain milestones, then that is predictive of later problems. As an example, and this is just my own crazy brain and how I've been putting it and how I like to talk to parents about this. If a child misses a milestone, it's like an app that needs to be updated that isn't being updated. So let's say here's my cell phone, right? And I'm always on your cell phone. It says time to update, right? Time software update or your apps you need to update, right? So let's make believe that a baby is born and it is an app, and the earliest physical milestone app is like the Heads Up app. But then once it masters the Heads Up app, now it gets a new update and it's the Rolling Baby app. And then once that masters the Rolling Baby app, now it's the Crawling Baby app. So each one of these apps need to be updated, and you get the message and then you press update and you put in your code and it updates. But here's the problem. What happens when they don't? What happens when that little munchkin, that little kiddo is unable to get that update and they're unable to get that going from the Head Up app to the Rolling app or the Rolling app to the Crawling? What happens if they're unable to download that? The neurotypical kids get the update. The neurodivergent kids, they don't. They get an error message like this: unable to install update, unable to install update. And what happens when they get the error message is now they have delays, right? And that's how I explain it to parents to make them understand. Excuse me. Now, here's the cool thing is that for years and years and years, I had this great milestone list that I could say, well, this is what's supposed to happen at this time, and this is what's supposed to happen at this time, and this is what's supposed to happen at this time. But all of a sudden, in February 2022, this year, the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics decided to change those milestones. And just to read you some of the interesting things that happened here, what they're saying is now 1 in 6 children with developmental disabilities have been shown to improve outcomes. However, less than a quarter of children with developmental disabilities receive early intervention services before age 3 years. Why? Why is that? Why is it that less than 1/4 of these kids receive early intervention? I'll tell you why in my own personal speak, and that is because they're not going to see chiropractors. They're not going to see chiropractors. They call these things milestones for a reason, right? They're not mile suggestions. They're milestones. Milestone, like if you're running, right? And we run over by the river over here, and there's a marker. It says a quarter mile and a half a mile and 3/4 of a mile and 1 mile. It says that for a reason. It doesn't, like, we didn't run by the other day and it said, we've decided to change the quarter mile marker to a half a mile. That wouldn't make any sense. What are you talking about? The quarter mile is a quarter mile, right? So this is what's really been getting to me. So listen to this, the stuff that they changed. Number one, they changed talking. from 12 to 15 months. From 12, so what's happening is they're allowing the delay in the beginning of talking to be okay for 3 more months. Okay, let's see the next thing. They decide to change walking from 12 to 18 months. I'm having a harder time with this one. So in other words, most kids used to walk at 12 months, and now it's going to be okay if they start walking at 18 months. This isn't sitting well with me, guys. And then this is my favorite, well, my least favorite, and that is crawling has been totally eliminated. Did you know that? Did you hear about that? Crawling has been totally eliminated as a milestone. How's that possible? And the rationale is because here's rationale. The removal of the crawling milestone was not due to its unimportance, but rather because the scientific literature is inconsistent on how it defines crawling and what ages should be achieved. So what that means is there are multiple ways of crawling, and they can't figure out which is the right, which is true crawling and which isn't crawling. And it happens at all these different ages. So what they decided in their infinite wisdom was, let's just eliminate crawling altogether. I don't know about you guys. But I'm a little upset. I'm a little miffed. And look at this. This comes from the American Speech Academy, Speech and Health Pathologists. A third of all retained milestones have been transferred to different ages. 67% of those are transferred to older ages, and 80% of the found milestones have either a data from one source or no sources whatsoever. This is bothering me. You know why? Because I think this delay in early intervention that they are pushing things out is because they're normalizing pathology. What they're doing is they're saying, we know that kids are talking late. We know that kids are walking late. We know that crawling is sort of this ethereal time period in different sorts of crawls, the scooting and the crab crawl and all that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to push this up, and we're going to normalize this so that people don't feel as bad. We're going to normalize this so that it doesn't create as much agita and to be irritating, to say, why is my child not walking? Why is my child? Oh, don't worry, it's going to be fine. He's got till 18 months. He's got till 15 months to talk. It's no crawling. He didn't crawl. Don't worry about it. It's going to be totally fine. You're normalizing pathology. You're taking things that don't make sense and you're making it normal only because you're seeing it more. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. And that's what I'm seeing right now. And to me, you want to see a gain in functional outcomes. How about including in a typical child, or I should say a neurodivergent child's care plan for across the board? Why don't you include about 8 chiropractic adjustments a month and daily home exercises? Wouldn't that be doing a good service for these kids? And listen to this from 2019, before COVID even happened. In this cohort study, more than half the study children received delayed early intervention access, and most received low-intensity early intervention access. An additional hour per month of early intervention services was associated with a 3-point gain. I would bet you guys, here in ChiroSecure and whoever else is listening, that not only would you see a 3-point gain in functional outcomes in a few months of chiropractic care, you probably see a 10 or 20-point gain. Because I've seen kids who come in who are not crawling, who can crawl, who are not rolling, who can roll, who cannot talk and start talking, who are not walking and start walking. And I see this in a really short period of time, and it's because chiropractic works, because we're working on their brain and their nervous system. We're not saying, oh, don't worry about it. People are coming in with their kids saying, what do I do? I just had twins come in yesterday, and the mom's like, I don't like how their eyes are, and I don't like how one of the twins, when she leans like this and she's lifting her head up like this, one of her hands is like this. I don't like that. And everybody's saying it's normal. And she said, what do you think? And I said, you know what? I don't care what they say. I know what I like looking at, and I like looking at symmetry. I like looking at balance. And that's what this is about. It's about getting balance and symmetry back into their brains, not just into their bodies, not just into whether their arms are like this, whether they're on their tummies, but balance in their brains and their nerve systems. One of the most important things I want to teach you guys, ChiroSecure chiropractors, is make sure you put the kids on the floor when you're doing an exam. Don't just have the mom hold baby in their arms like this and hold face down and put them on a bench and stuff like that. Put them on the floor. Get yourself of all these disposable paper gowns. I throw them on the floor, put baby on the floor because I want to see what do they look like when they're face down. What do they look like when they're face up? Now, don't do this for a 6-week-old or younger, right? Or a preemie that was really, really little. But once they're 8 weeks old or so, get them on the floor. See what they do. They should be, if a 6 to 8 week old baby should be able to put its head on the ground like this and lift its head up a little bit. And a 3-month-old should be able to put its head up like this with his hand out. And by 4 months, it should really be pushing out. And that's how these things start. And then the rolling starts, and the sitting starts, and the commando crawling on their belly starts. And then they start rocking to get themselves with their rear ends in the air, to get themselves to start to crawling. Then they start to crawl by 9, 10 months. Then they start taking steps. This is the normal order of things. These things shouldn't have changed. I don't know what they were thinking to change these things. Here's the proper rolling sequence. You need 3 pieces: head turns, arm turns, leg turns. Not like this, where kids are not rolling properly, where the head goes like this and then the arm turns this way. So you can't roll like this, right? If you want to roll this way and your arm is this way, you ain't rolling, right? You need all 3 of those things to go in the same direction. And here's the deal. These problems that are unresolved as a baby turn into bigger problems when they're in school. How do I know this? Seminal paper, one of the most important papers I have ever read, when I share with you right now. Movement analysis in infancy may be useful for early diagnosis in autism. I know this is old. It's 1998, but this is the paper that started it all for me. This is the paper that started all for me after Dr. Webster told me you got to get more into checking kids with autism, checking kids with ADHD, checking kids with sensory processing. He's the one who kind of get me in that direction back in 1995. This paper turned me around because what it stated was that kids who have movement issues as a youngster, as a baby, they have later problems such as autism, ADHD, learning disorders, sensory processing disorders, dyslexia, etc. One leads to another. And when you talk about movement disorders, it's not just movement like gross movement like rolling. It could even be something as simple as latching and nursing. Kids with latching and nursing issues may have problems with their brain that may lay later on to this. That's what they started to find out. And there's a book they also wrote, the Teitelbaums wrote. And Dr. Heiner Biderman, one of the amazing osteopath in Germany, wrote this great book, Manual Therapy in Children. And he talked about KISS syndrome, which he sees a lot with a lot of the kids that he takes care of. Thousands of kids he's taking care of. And KISS syndrome, essentially, I'm not going to go into it, but KISS syndrome, which is kinematic imbalance due to suboccipital strain, is when they have some kind of a torticollis, essentially. But that torticollis leads to other things. And just because the child might get older and their head might straighten doesn't mean that the KISS syndrome, which was unresolved, right? It might have changed, but it was unresolved, turns into what he calls KID syndrome, which is KISS-induced dysgnosia and dyspraxia, which is a perceptual and movement issues, right? And if you have a kid who's now 6, 7, 8 years old who having perceptual and movement issues, what's happening? Oh, they're not paying attention in class. They're not able to read as well. They're flapping like this. Something's going on with these kids, right? And these are developmental issues. That's why we see so many of these neurodivergent kids in our practice every single day. The parents are crying for this. The mom who came in yesterday with her twins, she said, the reason I'm here is because I see something that was going on that everybody else was ignoring. And I read your information and I watched some of your videos and listened to some of your podcasts. And I said, I need to take care of this now, so it doesn't turn into a problem later on. Exactly. That's where what we do is so important, because what we're seeing is if these kids don't get that latest update, right? If that little one can't get her hand out like this, why is her right hand behind? Because something's going on, probably left brain. Left brain is talking to her right hand saying, and not saying go over here. It's getting stuck over here. We call this a diaskesis. A diaskesis. A diaskesis means there's a lower brainstem issue that's creating an upstream area problem. Right? So you have a brainstem issue where a child is unable to lift their head up. So now if you have this lower brainstem, a lower brain issue, it's going to start affecting the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex especially is supposed to have a top-down regulation. What happens if it can't get that top-down? That's the diaskesis. The diaskesis is downstream, but that downstream diaskesis affects upstream brain function, just like this is showing here. Another seminal paper that talking about this. These diaskesis, whether it's in the cerebellum or it's in the brainstem or it's the thalamus or some other lower part of the brain, not cortex, not cortical stuff. You have a lower injury here, a lower issue here, an area that isn't functioning, an area that's disconnected, as Melillo would talk about, then you're going to have an upstream diaskesis. What we do ChiroSecure. What we do is our brain-based chiropractic changes kids' trajectories from disconnected to reconnected. That's what we do. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I speak around the world. That's why I do these sort of presentations for ChiroSecure, because of this. I am involved with the ICPA. I've been speaking for them since 2013. I've got all kinds of seminars with the ICPA. Check that out with our QR code. I've been speaking with Dr. Porges, who's talking about the polyvagal theory. If you're interested, this is a great seminar I put on as recorded. You can listen to Polyvagal Informed Pediatric Chiropractic. And of course, my podcast. I've had today I posted the 480th podcast. As far as I know, it's the longest running podcast in chiropractic. I would love for you to tune in. There's a link to that. What we have to do, ChiroSecure, is protect our future and just more kiddos. And to me, the way to do that is be disruptive. Don't do what everybody else does. Don't do what all the other chiropractors do. Be disruptive. Thank you so much to ChiroSecure for putting this on. ChiroSecure is the best malpractice organization with people who really care, who are really into chiropractic. It's my honor and privilege to present to them. Thank you guys, and I'll see you soon.
Today's pediatric show, Look to the Children, was brought to you by ChiroSecure.